is Sportscasters Anonymous, a weekly podcast about sports, all sports, MLB, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, collegiate football, and collegiate basketball. But there's more. We'll even talk about sports video games, sports movies. It's all here. You're listening to Sportscasters Anonymous on the Random Chatter Network, broadcasting to the globe from Jacksonville, Florida. This is Don and Chip.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? And welcome back to another episode of Sportscasters Anonymous. I'm Don. He's Chip. This is episode number 17, recorded on August 9th, 2020. As always, we've got lots of amazing news to bring you, as well as some sports updates, a whole bunch of chatter. But first, as always, Chip, my man, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I almost messed that up. I want to say one thing. I always like to say something off topic before we start, but we tied our series this week between the Yankees and the Phillies. And I have to say, a tie is probably the worst thing in sports possible. Yeah,
for us.
I'd rather lose than tie. Like, to me, a tie is just bleh. So, just putting that out there. So, anybody that was concerned about me and Don going at it this week for that, we tied. So, he won 2 games, I won 2 games.
So, would you say that means there's peace in the family?
There's peace for this series. We've got many more Yankees-Phillies series to look forward to. But I was quite upset at the fact that it ended up being a 2-2 tie. So,
is what it is. It's a crazy season. It could have gone either way. So, we'll look forward to the next round.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so you guys can contact us at our email. Mine is chip@randomchatter.com, or you can contact Don at randomchatter.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Sportcastanon, ANON, or you can join us on Discord under Random Chatter, where there's sports and pop culture talk. And then you can support us on Patreon under Random Chatter. And then you can also buy our stuff at randomchatter.com/store.
Awesome. A beautiful delivery, Chip. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You do quite well for somebody that is awfully sleep deprived as we begin the show.
Yes, I am very, very sleep deprived. And it's not because I've been watching sports 24/7. There's been a lot of other things going on in my life right now that are keeping me up. So, but we're moving through it. We're here for the show, and we're gonna get right into it.
Absolutely. And real quick, as always, before we get on with the news, 2 more things I want to throw out there. Want to give a shout out again to our friend Des Creates. Awesome artwork. She will do custom work for you if you want it. Check out what she's offering, Des Creates, DEZcreates.com. And Chip, I wanted to let you know that our friend Hydrox22 was doing a stream on Sea of Thieves the other day, and he plugged our community and our show to his fans. So we're going to do the same for his fans again. Follow him on Twitch TV, Hydrox22. That's HYDROX and the number 22. And with that being said, man, let's kick off with the NFL updates.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's not much positives that usually come from this, but one of the Vikings linebacker got a positive test for COVID. And the reason it's a positive for him is because while they were doing his physical and found that he had, because once you get a positive COVID test, then you have to go through a whole bunch of other testings to verify it, and you get all these imaging and all this other stuff to see if it's really affecting you. Well, when they were doing that, they found that he actually has a congenital heart condition, that if he had played with it because he had no symptoms, he could have ended up having a heart attack on the field and dying. So they found it. They did open heart surgery. They fixed it. He's expected to recover fully. Probably will not play anytime soon for obvious reasons. It was the end of his season, but he'll be back next season. And he's a pretty young guy. He was a 5th-round pick in 2019, so he's a really young guy, but he was, I guess, playing with this for a while. Never knew it, but with this kind of stuff, you take one hit to the chest and boom, lights out. So it's amazing that they were able to, a positive COVID test actually was a good thing, because you don't hear much about that as far as it being an indication of finding other conditions or injuries that could be life-threatening. So that's an absolute good thing. So I'm glad that they found it. And there are other stories where they'll find this. I think the big one that hits home with me was John Dornbos. He kind of has a similar situation, not with a positive test of COVID, but he got traded to another team and they did a full physical on him and found that he was playing with a similar heart condition that he could have, if he had gotten hit, could have just died right there on the field. And they did surgery and it basically saved his life. It ended his career because he was like 39 at the time, but
he's got his whole life ahead of him.
yeah. So he ended up retiring, which he never played again, which sucked because then the Eagles went and won the Super Bowl, but they did him a solid and gave him a Super Bowl ring because he had spent his entire career with us. And it was just, he always, if you ever watch him, he always jokes that he's the only long snapper to get traded for a draft pick. So he was an Eagle through and through, and it would just so happened it was at the end of his career, and we have two long snappers, and you got to get rid of one of them. So they kind of just traded him away, and they traded him away. It was he'll even say it was the saved his life because it was the best thing that ever happened to him. So you do see sometimes that when players go through these physicals, they find things that they didn't know before, and they found this mostly because of a positive COVID test, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no other way to spin it than thank God.
Yeah, because
we could have lost somebody.
Yeah, that's one thing you absolutely don't want to see on the field is someone take a hit and then all of a sudden lights out. Like that's just not anything that anybody wants to see. And then also moving on, so they're redoing. This is kind of cool. They're redoing the voting for the Hall of Fame. Now the coaches will have their own category of being voted in.
Hey.
the way they were doing it before was the coaches were lumped in with the players, which I kind of don't think was fair.
I didn't know that you limit the number on the ballot that you can induct that year.
Yeah, so I don't think that was fair. Like the coaches should have been separate. So for the next 4 years, the coaches will have their own category. So there'll at least be a coach every year that's elected to go into the Hall of Fame, or at least has a good potential chance of getting into the Hall of Fame. And then they still have the same amount of players and same amount of players that are going to be in it with the coaches, which I think is really cool and the right thing that they should do.
I like it. I mean, it's good. I mean, that just expanding the greatness of football. We hear about that contribute to the game and all these Hall of Fame players, but you need that coach on the sideline is an integral part of that team dynamic. So there's a lot of coaches, I think, that should be recognized. And now that you're having their own category, you probably will have more coaches that will be recognized.
Yeah, which would be awesome. Because there's some really good coaches out there. And as much as you would hate to admit it, Bill Belichick will probably get inducted into the Hall of Fame at some point.
I'm not going to deny it. Now, as much as I hate it, look at his record and his accomplishments. I don't care for the guy. He beats on my team every season, but the record stands for itself. If for you to do what you do in your field, in your career, to go into the Hall of Fame or to be recognized like that is deserving. So whether or not I like the guy, he's earned it. What can you say?
Let me ask you this though. And I just thought of this as you were talking.
Uh-oh.
Do you think that the amount of times he's gotten caught, quote unquote, cheating tarnishes his standing as a great football coach.
Does it tarnish the legacy?
Yes.
Yes. Does it tarnish the legacy? Yes. But if you were, you can do the coulda, shoulda, woulda. So if you look at his whole career in the times that they got caught cheating, all right, let's say you remove those seasons and still look at the body of work otherwise, you can't tell me all this time he's been cheating. I'm sorry. He just hasn't. He's a good coach. For anybody in their sport that's caught cheating or anything like that, does that tarnish your legacy? Yes. But if you look at the overall body of work, he's still deserving.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, it doesn't make him the greatest coach of all time because of it, but it doesn't tarnish the part that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I still think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think you can consider him the greatest of all time because of some of these controversial things that have happened. That makes sense.
That's fair enough.
And then the other thing coming out of the NFL, there's not much going on with the NFL. They're starting up training camps. So there's really only a few stories that happened.
They're
that were
watching
noteworthy.
baseball very closely.
Yeah. we have our focus on other things at this point, but no, so they are going to, just like the NBA did, they're going to have virtual fans. I'm not really sure exactly how they're going to do it, if they're going to just build screens along the side of a 100-yard stadium.
It's the only way you can do it, really.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're gonna do it, but they say it's gonna be similar to the NBA, but that's a huge screen that if they put it along the entire length of the field, I don't know. That just doesn't really make sense to me. But anyways, they're gonna do virtual fans. Now I know some stadiums have already come out and said that we're not having fans. Some are saying they're going to be limiting around 33 to 40%. I know this past week, Green Bay stated that the first 2 home games, they're having no fans, but then plan to have fans afterwards. And then some stadiums like the Philadelphia Eagles have said that they're not having any fans for the entire season. Dallas has said they're not having fans for the entire season. So there's many teams that are saying that they're not going to have fans, and then other ones saying that they're hoping that they're going to have fans and they're selling tickets. So this is one of those things where, we said with the NBA, we don't think it's going to work. I really don't think this is going to work. And I don't know how they're going to pull it off. It
just like every other sport. Wait and see. Wait till they see.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, and honestly, and you and I both corrected ourselves on this. When we originally saw what they were going to do with the NBA, you and I were both were like, "Nah, I don't buy it. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to be a distraction." Blah blah blah. It's actually been pretty awesome, but that's a basketball court. I don't see how you do this with a football field.
That's what I'm thinking the logistics of it, and it just doesn't make sense, especially if you want some fans to be there and some fans not to be there. The logistics of it don't really make sense to me. Now, if you put each stadium has a video board that they can put fans on, but most of it, if you took Dallas's big huge board and you put the fans up there, they're above the players. The players can't see the fans.
Yeah, how do you do that?
What's the point of that? Even the cameras can't pan the field and pan up. With basketball, everything's court level when you're watching it, so you can see the fans in the backdrop, and that's really what they're going for the effect of is to still have quote unquote fans there.
We'll see. We can speculate. Logistically, I wouldn't doubt if they reached out to the NBA and said, "Hey, what can we do?" Or what did this cost you guys? How do you want to do it? Do you put some up in the end zone when you're kicking the field goals and whatnot? For that effect. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not gonna put it on both sides of the field. That's a given. Basketball, you've got it wherever the camera angles are. So I could see maybe doing like part of the field, like maybe 20 yards in each direction from the 50, and then maybe something behind the uprights. I don't know.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. Like I could see them doing more of what like baseball did and putting cardboard cutouts in the stands than putting actual virtual, like what are they going to put? They could put like a TV in every seat. Like that would be even more ridiculous. But at the same time, like how else would you do it? Like, I don't know.
I guess we'll see. We'll see. I mean, obviously when they come up with something, it's going to leak or whatnot, and we'll get a glimpse of it. So we'll wait. I mean, in all honesty, on the other sports, we speculated and we kind of bashed it, and we were wrong. It's actually pretty cool. So part of me is a little reserved, but I'm also anxious to see what they come up with.
Yeah, it's careful optimism, as I would like to put it. So, yeah, I mean that's it for the NFL. They really didn't they're all revving up training camp. There was some, I guess one of the bigger stories in the beginning of the week was Matt Stafford tested positive, was a false positive for COVID. So then he was kind of upset about that. But really, other than that, they all started training camp and they're all starting to rev up and begin the football season in a month. So all plans going forward.
I'm pretty sure over the next 3 weeks we're going to have a ton of stuff to report as we get close to that opening day. So hold your breath. Yeah, it should be a fun ride.
I mean, initially, I think we'll get more closer to the start of the season because we don't have preseason games. There's no preseason games, so it's going to be like every week's going to be like, hey, training camp's still going. Hey, training camp's still going. Hey, training camp's going. Oh, hey, this week we're getting games. So,
yeah.
So we're just going to move on to the NBA with their updates. So this was the first, I guess, full week of basketball that we had.
It was a lot of basketball, bro.
I'll be honest, it was hard to go through all the games and be like, I mean, literally every day we could have been like, oh, this was a good game. We could talk about this game. Oh, this was a good game. We could talk about this game. So we're going to try to highlight as much of it as we can. I think the biggest shock of the entire bubble is who is actually the leading scorer of the bubble. So, like, if I were to ask you, and I don't know if you looked at the article that I put up there yet or not, but if I were to say, who do you think is the leading scorer of the bubble so far, who would you say?
Well, I did read the article, but to go along that line, you would want to say Giannis, you'd want to say LeBron, you'd want to say James Harden, you might even want to put Kawhi in there, and it's not any of them.
Yeah, so like, if you were to ask me that question, I would hands down probably say it's just watching the games. I'd probably say it's Harden, James Harden, probably because the dude takes 50 shots a night and shoots like 30 free throws. So you would expect him to score, like it be the leading scorer, but it is actually TJ Warren of the Indiana Pacers who is just absolutely killing it. He's averaging 34.8 points per game and shooting 60.5% from the field and 55% from three.
That's a game changer right there, bro.
That is just insane. And he actually led the Pacers to upset the Lakers, which was crazy. Like, it's just, and they the headline of it is he's on a different planet. And I watched him play against the Sixers in the first game, and it was like the dude was unconscious. Like, he was throwing up stuff that shouldn't even gone close to going in, and it was like swish every time. Like, they had like three guys around him, and he was jumping up and shooting, and it was going in. Like, when you get into a zone like that, you can't miss, and he's in that zone right now.
And he ain't missing.
No. And it's just insane. You wouldn't expect that out of them. Like, I didn't, like, honestly, when we were going to the bubble, I was like, oh, the Pacers, they don't have Malcolm Brogdon's not really there. Victor Oladipo, they're kind of both kind of hurt or not playing. I'm like, they really don't have much to do. They don't have many stars. They're not going to really do much. And then they come out and they're now keeping pace, and they're probably going to keep the 5th spot just because the Sixers are awful right now. They're garbage, so they're not going to surpass them. And it's going to be an interesting matchup between them and the Heat. Like that's going to be a good matchup. Like I'm looking at some of the standings for it, and there's going to be some really good matchups in that first round. You're going to have Sixers versus the Celtics. You're going to have the like I said, the Heat versus the Pacers. Those are going to be 2 really good series. They're going to give you a lot of really good, close, competitive games. So one of the other really good games this week was we were watching it at work. It was the double OT thriller.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Between the Jazz and the Nuggets.
My God, man, what a game.
It seemed like the Nuggets had the game well in hand, and then all of a sudden the Jazz came back and tied it. They came out of nowhere, nobody's business to be a part of the game, and then they came back and tied it up and went into overtime. So they were down 4 points with 10 seconds left, and came back and tied it. Then in the overtime they were down. They came back and tied it. And it was going back and forth, and there was so many close plays, and it was a true like playoff game from that standpoint, and went to double OT, and Denver ended up winning by 2.
OT.
Yeah, it almost went to triple OT. It was crazy, and Denver ended up pulling it off, and it was we were glued to the TV watching it. And it was a really good game.
I know you and I both kind of looked at each other and were like, what in the heck is going on? Like nobody wanted to take the upper hand in that game. It was a classic back and forth, a lot of action. It was an amazing game.
Yeah, it was one of those games that you're just like people would tell you like, hey, can you do this? And you're like, no, I gotta watch this.
Yeah,
don't bother me.
Like, leave me alone for 5 minutes.
Yeah, give me 5 minutes. And yeah, one of the other good things to be watching for this upcoming week, or we're gonna be kind of skipping around a little bit, but this week is the battle for the 8th in the West because it's getting heated. So Memphis lost today. Which guaranteed that there will be a play-in tournament for the 8th spot, and they are all jumbled up there, especially with Portland beating the Sixers today. I think it's gonna. I really want to hope and see that it's Portland that makes that 8th spot. So it's gonna be Portland versus the Lakers, because that is gonna be a huge series. That would be a really competitive series because Damien Lillard, who is just taking over games, battling up against LeBron and AD, it's just that's going to be a really, really good 1-8 matchup, and could see an upset, especially the way the Lakers are playing right now, because the Lakers are not playing so well.
Do you think, to build off of that, do you think the Lakers are just taking it easy kind of because they got the number 1 seed and they're cruising, or do you think the team's having problems?
I think initially they came in when they played the Clippers and they won. They're like, all right, we got this. And then the few games after it, they were kind of like on cruise control to the point where it was like, and I mean, we can introduce it. Like they got demolished by the OKC Thunder. Like they lost by almost 20 points. And I think that was like the wake up call. Like, oh, like we got to, like they started getting, yeah, like they started like, we got to take this seriously. And then they started losing more and more games, and their play has been bad. And like, they just do not, like when they played the Clippers, it was like they didn't even show up for that game for the most part. Like the first half, they were all right. The second half, the third quarter, they were all right. And then in the fourth quarter, like LeBron just took over the game and won the game for him, but they didn't win. They won by 2 points or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then like they have just not been in sync. It's been a lot of like LeBron just doesn't seem right, and like he's almost like trying to play too much of a facilitator than he is like LeBron James, I'm going to take over the game and score 40 points. Like, he's trying to get AD involved, and he's trying to, like, they're notorious for doing a lot of isolation stuff, but I feel like they're doing a lot more isolation, but they seem very lost on the court. Like, they do not have the same momentum that they had before the hiatus.
Yeah.
And maybe it is they're on cruise control, but I just don't see it that way. I see it as they're just not playing well. And that's going to be interesting going into matchups where they play teams that are playing like it's a playoff atmosphere, because it's really hard in sports to flip the switch and turn it on. So you never want to start putting it on cruise control, because it's hard to turn it back on once you like let the momentum die.
I mean, you got to be hungry for it, man. You got to keep it going.
Yeah, which is why it annoys me a lot when they're like, oh, hey, we're going to rest our players so they don't get injured. Like, if I was a player, I'd be like, no, I want to play. Like, I want to keep my sharpness up. Like, yeah. Like, I want to win every game. Like, I don't want to rest. Like, that's going to take me off my game. Like I'm going to, like, I don't know. Like, for me, I wouldn't be able to handle resting a game just because of we're already clinched the playoff spot, and it's like a meaningless game. Like, no, like, every game means something. Like, I want to go out there and like play and do my best and not sit. Like, I could do less minutes, but I would never want to like just sit in the game. So that's I totally think this whole load management thing is BS, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. So as we indicated, the West is heating up. Memphis, who currently holds the 8th seed, just all they had to do was win some games in the bubble, and that was the end of it. And they've only won 1 out of 6 games. Hence, now we've got Portland right on their heels. Portland, their last 6 games is 4-2. Amazing work. The Spurs are trying to catch them. Spurs are 4-2. They both have 2 games. Phoenix hasn't been eliminated. They are 5-0 with 3 games to go. So as it goes right now, Chip, somebody, Memphis could end up getting bumped out and someone else taking that 8th seed. And with that being said, I believe the rule is if the 9th place team is within 4 games or fewer of the 9th team, then that's a playoff. So the Grizzlies more or less need to win 2 more games to hold the A seed. Do you think Memphis hangs on, or do you think they're going to get the boot?
I think Memphis is, at this point, dead in the water.
The ship has sailed, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jaren Jackson on their team got hurt, and he was a big contributor to their team. And now that really all they have now on their team is Valanciunas and Ja, and Valanciunas is not it's not enough, because Valanciunas is not like the big dominant like Anthony Davis, and John Morant's still a rookie. So like as good as he is, he's not going to be able to carry a team at this early stage of his career. And I think it's showing in the bubble that they don't have the star power to play against a Portland or play against a Phoenix. Like, Phoenix is the biggest. I would probably say Phoenix is the biggest surprise of the bubble, because they were
without question.
Starting, they were like the last team in the bubble, and now they're like 5-0 and might go 8-0 and might end up being a viable part of the play-in. Which would be crazy to think, because you would think that the fact that they leapfrogged all those other teams would be insane. I think Portland gets the 8th seed, though. I think they're just, they got Nurkic, they got Yosef back, and he makes a huge difference onto that team by giving them a viable big man down low. So
that answers that question. I was going to ask you, who do you think is going to take the 8th seed? So then that answers it. So you are holding firm on Portland. You think they're the team?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of injuries, because I kind of alluded to it,
there have been some very big and major injuries to some teams that are in the playoff contention. I already mentioned Ben Simmons. He dislocated his patella and has to have arthroscopic surgery. I know we were talking about it off the air.
Yeah.
Like anything that can go wrong with the Sixers goes wrong with the Sixers. Like I feel like they all got injured. Embiid got injured today because he fell on the bottom of the basketball hoop wrong. I don't know how you do that, but he supposedly stepped backwards and stepped on the wrong and rolled his ankle. So he sat out the rest of the game, and surprisingly, they made it a competitive game. Only lost by 3, which was Portland should have destroyed them, and there's no way that, like, especially when Damian Lillard drops 51 points, like you should have won by a lot more than 3 points. But the fact the Sixers hung in there was kind of incredulous. And then Aaron Gordon injured his hamstring, so he hasn't been playing for the Magic. He's supposed to come back, but it's a hamstring injury. Like, that's a lingering thing. How effective is he going to be? And then the really big one is Jonathan Isaac tore his ACL, and he is out for the rest of the bubble season.
That's all she wrote there.
Probably is going to be out for most of the next season too. It was a bad fall. It was a bad play too. He tried to, I guess, do a jump stop and landed on his foot wrong, and he went down in a heap, in so much pain, which is, it's sad to see. And then you have the occasional players sitting out for quote unquote load management. I hate that. And like they're not playing back-to-back games. Like I don't know. Like, I played basketball. Like, yeah, it sucks playing back-to-back games, but you do it. Like,
it comes with the job.
I don't know. I don't know at what point did they became, like, you see teams in the 80s and 90s, and if you even brought up the word load management to them, they'd probably knock you out. So like, man. Like you used to play, like, when it was an 82 game season, if you didn't play like 82 games, like, you used to, like, oh man, you're not a great player. Like, that was like kind of how it was. Like, I don't know. Like, it just, I wish players, and I hate to use the word soft, but I think some of the players today are too soft.
With bigger paychecks.
Yes.
Way more than their predecessors made. Yeah.
Yes. Significantly more. But that's neither here nor there. So let me ask you this. I went over a lot of this stuff. What is your biggest surprise that you've noticed of this bubble?
Well, the biggest surprise, I'm with you on Phoenix, man. Just 5-0, you know. I mean, and they're taking it too. Everybody they play, I've watched a lot of the games. That, I think the Phoenix story really has me surprised. That would probably be the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I mean, they're killing it. Sometimes you hit a stride and you just can't be stopped. And they're surprisingly hitting a stride. Like, they're not like blowing teams out. Like, they're just winning. And like, I didn't realize they were 5-0 until yesterday when I was looking at it. I saw that they were 5-0. Like, I was like, oh, like, I mean, it's Phoenix. Like, you don't hear much about them. And then I thought they won a couple of games, but I didn't realize that they were doing as well as they were, which is kind of interesting and cool at the same time. Another really shock was earlier, and this is down your alley. Earlier this week, the Brooklyn Nets upset the Milwaukee Bucks 119-116.
Yeah. Yeah.
it is the largest NBA point spread upset since 1993. Plus, the Nets were plus 19, and they defeated the Milwaukee Bucks 119-116. Wow.
Yeah. When I saw that, and I was just flabbergasted. I was like, huh? That's, especially with as dominant as the Bucks are, that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
it.
most of Brooklyn's team is like either opted out or they're injured, so like they're playing with scrubs. It's like Carius LeVert and scrubs.
That's
But
what makes it
so
even more amazing.
yeah, even to go on further with that, there hasn't been a 19-point spread since the Rockets were favorites against the New York Knicks in the 2017-2018 season.
Thanks for that update.
Just throwing that there. But like
Yeah.
it doesn't happen that you have 19 points point
No.
spread, but
In a college
fact
game,
that-
yes. In an NBA, no.
the fact that they overcame it, like I wish they came out with the stats of how much Vegas lost on that game, because
I don't think we want to know. It was a lot.
yeah. Here it goes. 13-1 odds, resulting in a $7,800 profit. Yeah, I mean, not many people bet on Brooklyn, but yeah, I don't know. They don't really say who, how much they lost, but they talked a lot about profits and stuff like that. So like, if you bet $600, you won 7,800 or something like that. That's just that's crazy. And then we had things got really heated between the Clippers and Portland. So this game last night, so Damian Lillard is stepping up to ice the game, or to put the Portland Trailblazers up with like 3 seconds left or something like that. They were down 1. He had 2 free throws and he missed both of them. And Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris were. What was that?
I'm sorry. I'm saying, and the reason that they're saying he's going to ice the game, because in this, he's clutch. Like when he went up to the line, everyone was going, "This game is over."
Yeah, he's like a 86% free throw shooter, like even better than that when it comes down to the fourth quarter. And he missed both of them, like that, which is like unheard of for him. And Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris were on the bench, and they were heckling him from the bench. Because a lot of times or every time Damian Lillard hits like a big shot, he like waves goodbye to the team, and it's like his like calling card, quote unquote. And they were mocking him on the sidelines, like doing the same motion and then waving goodbye, like shooting a shot and then waving goodbye. Just kind of having fun with it. Well, Damian Lillard didn't realize it. He knew that they were heckling him, but he didn't really realize it until after the post-game press conference. They were mentioning it. And I have to say he took a very mature approach to it with his response, saying that he felt it was like a sign of respect, that he knows that they know what he has done to both of them in the past with their teams, with the when they were on OKC. And that he shows it as a sign of respect because they know that they expect him to make it, and he thinks that he should make it, and that's the way he took it. And I thought that was a pretty good way to take the high road. Well, the Clippers didn't think it was the high road because they started getting into a Twitter war, again, social media corrupting sports, and they were sending tweets back and forth. I think Paul George and Patrick Beverley sent one about we'll see in I forget what city they put, like, we'll see you in the Caribbean or something like that. Basically insinuating that they're not going to make it to the playoffs when it starts. And Damian Lillard shot back at him, saying like, "We'll see, the season's not over," kind of thing. And yeah, so they're kind of a war of words.
Yes.
So it would be very interesting to see. I'm pretty sure they don't play each other again, but like if Portland were to make it in there and somehow figure out a way to go play LAC, like that would be a crazy series. But it shows you that even the bubble doesn't stop trash talking and these are your arguments. Like it's a little bit different, like, and we'll get into it with baseball, but like with the NBA, they don't necessarily trash talk or fight the way that like the MLB doesn't fight kind of the way that the NBA does. Like the NBA just kind of heckles and trash talks, and then that's kind of like it. There's not really a big brawl or anything like that, and like most of it's just out of good fun. But some of the games to watch for this week, we do want to move on. I know we've talked a lot about the NBA, but some of the games to watch for this week is, so we have Toronto versus Milwaukee Monday at 6:30. Then we have the Lakers versus Denver. So Toronto, Milwaukee is the 1-2 seed in the East, which would be really interesting to see. Lakers versus
champs and the best in the Eastern Conference. I'm telling you, it's going to be a good game.
Be a good game. The Lakers versus Denver. That'll be a great game because it's going to be Jokic versus LeBron and AD. And then you're going to have Philadelphia versus Toronto Wednesday at 6:30. Now, I wrote this before Embiid got hurt, so if Embiid doesn't play, it's going to be more of Toronto just beating up on the Sixers, so it may not be as great of a game. But then we have Miami versus Indiana, which is a prelude to the 4-5 matchup. And then Philadelphia versus Houston. Again, I wrote this before Embiid got hurt, so if Embiid doesn't play, then it's kind of a moot point. But those games are both for Friday.
Well, look at it this way, though. What if Embiid's not playing and these guys kind of like take what's left of the Sixers and put a hodgepodge team together and they start going out there and kicking butt? I mean, you'd love that, right? Don't give up hope.
Let's be serious here. They can't do anything without Embiid and Simmons.
I'm going to be serious. They're going to one and done. That's how it's going to go in the playoffs. In, out. One series done. Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
We'll hope for the best. Well, hey, again, at least your team made it to the bubble.
Yeah, it's true. We could be the Knicks. Yeah. All right, moving on to MLB. So the big thing out of this week, there was a lot of games. The surprise so far, and as much as we beat them to death last week, the Marlins with their 18 replacement players went on a 6-game winning streak and are actually the leaders in their conference or in their division right now, winning the NL East, which is just absolutely insane.
Maybe they finally figured out the way to win. Just get rid of the starters, bring in the other guys.
or play Baltimore.
Yeah.
So that's a shocker. I don't see that lasting, but that's just newsworthy. And then the Nick Markakis, I silently opted back in. I didn't even know he opted back in, but he opted back into the. I didn't know you could actually do that. That you could just randomly go, "Hey, I want to come back." I find that highly sketchy, but that's just me. Anyways, he opted back in, and in his first game back, he hits a walk-off home run for the Braves to have them win, which sucks for me, but it is what it is.
Well, if you're a Braves fan, they needed it.
Yeah, and so I guess the big thing coming out of the NBA, and it was kind of like last week when we talked about it, is the Cardinals are canceling all the games because they had a COVID scare. Yes. I think they canceled their series with the Pirates this week. So the NBA or the MLB has been doing a lot of revamping of the schedule. And like I said, the Marlins, I feel like they're like almost to like, I was thinking about it today when I was driving home. MLB, when they said that we don't want to do the 80 game schedule that the players wanted to do, I feel like the owners were just like they were like a parents, and they know more than the players. The players are like the kids, and the owners are like the parents, and they're like, no, we're not doing this. Like, we know that something bad's going to happen. And like, they figured that like, if there was a COVID scare, like we're going to have to push all these games together just to get 60 games out of it. And my God, did they push all these games together. So the Marlins have, and this is like, I guess, poetic justice in the sense, but the Marlins have to end the season. They have to play 27 games in 23 days.
That's a lot of games, man.
Unreal. They have no days off. They have like double headers every other game. Like, just that's insane. Like how do you like even formulate pitching staff for that many games? Like they play the Marlins and the Phillies play towards the end of the season 7 games in 5 days. Like I can't even there's 2 days of double headers plus games outside of that. Like, and that's just crazy. That's just crazy to think of. And there are a lot of other teams that are playing multiple doubleheaders against the Phillies and the Marlins. Like the Phillies are set for more games. Like we don't really have many days off, and it's just, I feel like the owners are just trying to push 60 games because they want to put in 60 games now, because that's what they wanted, rather than thinking about the like practicality and the feasibility of it. That's just,
don't forget, man, with all these double headers and everything that you have, I love 7-inning baseball.
Oh, I hate it.
That was sarcasm.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being serious.
I hate it.
I was going to argue with you, but I think it's Bush League. It's awful. I don't want to see it at all. I want to see my 9-inning games.
7-inning baseball game. My son was in Little League.
Oh my God. I was sitting there today and was like, the Phillies had a doubleheader and they were playing the first game and it was the 5th inning and Braves put up a 5 spot, and I go, all right, I don't want to watch this anymore. The game's over. And one of our coworkers turns to me and he goes, it's not even halfway over. I said, no, they only play 7 innings. So they only got like one more inning before it's over. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, it's pointless. I was like, I don't want to, I want to watch an entire baseball game. I don't want to watch a 7-inning where it's like no relief pitchers. Like, it's not baseball. That's all I got to say about that.
Keep going.
So.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Wait, every day you and I talk about something else for baseball, and we just sit there and we're shaking our head going, just don't. Just go.
Yeah, I mean, we have baseball is in its own world right now, and there's going to be a lot of baseball over the next month and a half, 2 months. I don't even know how long their season is. And there is just so many sports going on right now. It's hard to keep track of it all. I'm like looking at like the schedule for the day, and I'm like, okay, oh man, that's a really good game, but that game's going on. I really want to watch that game. And next thing you know is I got three screens up of sports, and I'm like, oh man, this is getting bad.
Right. Checking your Twitter feed, checking your lineups, trying to get scores and whatnot. And you're just like, what's going on? Well, I know, like, I get up in the morning and I have breakfast. Like on the day that I'm off, I'll have breakfast and do what I need to do around the house. And then once I get to about lunchtime around noon, I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's some games about to start. Like a 12:30 game or a 1 o'clock game. Then you look at the schedule and you're like, oh my God, what do I watch?
Yeah, I mean, and I usually look at it the night before. I'm like, all right, so what games do I really like? Or do I have to pay attention to tomorrow? And then when I look at it, I'm like, okay, these are good. I'm like, what are my teams playing? And it's like, it hasn't happened yet where I've had like the Phillies, the Flyers, and the Sixers all on one day. But there's been multiple days where it's been like Phillies are at night, and then I have I have the Flyers playing at the same time the Phillies are playing, and then I have the Sixers during the day, and I'm like, great, I love my teams and everything like this, but I got to get some work done. Like, they really don't want me to get any work done because all I'm going to do is sit there and watch like baseball all the time. So, or watch sports all the time, not necessarily baseball. And it's like you catch highlights of games, and it's just so much. Because we didn't have it, this is March Madness for me. It's just March Madness over an entire month instead of one weekend.
The games are not dwindling down as the weeks go. There's more of them.
Yes. If anything, it's getting more and more. So it's getting crazier and crazier. But we're rolling with it, and we're making it work. And so we got some big hockey news because hockey finished their round robin that they had.
Yep.
They finished that, and right now, well, I shouldn't say they finished it because the Blue Jackets and the Maple Leafs are still playing, I believe, right now.
For all intents and purposes, it's done.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, done. The Flyers, I am happy to report, the Flyers are a number 1 seed. They owned the round robin. They were probably the best team in the round robin. Not to toot my own horn, but they're going to win the Stanley Cup. The Vegas Golden Knights were the number 1 seed in the West.
Not surprised.
The biggest surprise of the entire I want to say round robin was the Bruins, who have just fallen from the grace, like fallen from top, like in high priceness, I guess you could say. They went from being number one with the most points and the best record to falling all the way down to number 4. They lost every single game in the round robin, and
they crash and burned. That's the best way to put it. Just
yeah, I mean, today they were somewhat
hard.
Yeah, they were somewhat competitive today against the Capitals, but man, they went from 1 to 4, and now they're in a 4 matchup. It's going to be crazy for them. Yeah. I'd rather be up number 1. I'm happy because I don't like the Bruins, so they gotta deal with Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm quite happy with that we got the Montreal Canadiens. So that's a good. So let me ask you this. I don't know if you had a chance to look at a lot of the matchups, but what is your matchup that you're looking forward to in the playoffs, if you have one?
I don't know if I have a favorite one. I'm just in general to get some hockey playoffs here. Of course, I don't have a team in the fight. I just kind of like, I don't know if there's anybody particular. I'll pull for Philly. Definitely pull for Philly. Boston's fall from grace was alarming. And I will pull for Tampa. And out in the I love those Golden Knights, man. Just those guys, even last year. I mean, these guys are beasts. So I like them for the West. So I'm going to be watching all the games, but I probably will be paying close attention to Philadelphia and Tampa and Vegas.
Yeah. So it definitely. I think the matchup that I'm looking most forward to is the Capitals versus the Islanders. I think that's going to be a really I know how stacked the Capitals are, but the Islanders have been playing really well. That series or the Bruins and the Hurricanes, just because not the Bruins and the Hurricanes. Excuse me, I was on the wrong thing. The Lightning versus the Blue Jackets, just because the Lightning have a bunch of injuries, which plus what they did last year against the Blue Jackets. So that's kind of like a repeat series, if you can say, and see if they have any redemption. So that would be one of the matchups that I would definitely be looking for. The West, I think it's going to be the Golden Knights I think it's just Golden Knights are going to take it. Like, I don't see the Avalanche, the Stars, Blues, Canucks, Flames, Coyotes, or Blackhawks.
I don't see anybody knocking those guys off. I just don't.
Yeah. Which is crazy because you've never seen an expansion team come in and have so much success so early. That's just insane.
Rare. It's rare, but it's awesome. It's a great storyline. It really is. I mean, these guys. The bad news is, and we dealt with this in Jacksonville with the Jaguars. When you're an expansion team and you come in and you have that early success early on and you're winning like that, that becomes an expectation for the fans. So it's a double-edged sword. It's, hey, we are so happy that we got the franchise and look what they're doing out of the gate. Your fans will come to expect that now. Like for the Golden Knights, they're going to be they're 2 years in existence. They're going to be expected to be cup contenders every season now. So, you got to be careful with that.
So they're in their third year, right? This is their third year?
Our third season. I need to go back and look, but I mean, in the grand scheme, they're the young guys, and they're absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I know their first season they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and they lost. And I thought last year they didn't go as far, and then you're talking to the wrong person. I pay attention to the Flyers, and when the Flyers don't do well, I kind of fall off of hockey. So, the Flyers are doing well, so I'm paying attention to hockey again. It's terrible. It's terrible to say, but that's kind of how it works. I have a couple of buddies that are like super into hockey, and that's like their sport, and they would always give me rundowns of it. But I remember that was the big story was the Golden Knights, their first year as an expansion team. ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and it was like such a crazy year for them because like when you're an expansion team, for those that don't know, like when you get your players a little bit from every team. Like you basically have a draft, and yeah, and and you can pick players from other teams. Like teams will designate like I think it's like 5 players that they are like untouchable, but then you can like pick other players from other teams as you go through like a draft. And that's how you fill out your roster. And then you kind of go through the normal like free agency and all that kind of stuff. But like that's how you start your rosters by picking players from other teams. And usually you don't get the stars. You get like guys that are at the end of their contracts or veterans that are at the end of their careers. And the Golden Knights did that, but they got guys that you could say they were like quote unquote rejects of other teams, but had chips on their shoulders, and they ended up getting lightning in a bottle, and they're now one of the perennial powerhouses in the league. So it's a really cool story, and it's extremely rare. I don't know of any team that's actually ever done it as been successful as they are, and
as quickly. I would say as quickly, because like I said, the Jags for football within like a couple of seasons. They went all the way, I think, to the AFC Championship, but not to the Super Bowl. And here the Golden Knights just went boom, we're here.
Yeah,
and that was it. You know,
and it's such a success, which is why I think it streamlined Seattle to get their own team. Like I don't think they would have pushed so quickly to get Seattle to have a hockey team if it wasn't for the Golden Knights being as successful as they were in their first season.
right.
So
I mean, there is a lot of the round robin tournaments were great, but now we're getting into the playoffs, and there's going to be some fantastic matchups, some fantastic games. So in between every other sport that we're watching, I was looking at the teams that made it 1 through 8 and whatnot, and you've got great matchups on both sides. There's going to be some amazing hockey to be played here.
Oh, absolutely. I think a really like a good matchup to watch out for. I think the Eastern Conference has like every single series is like a great matchup. But even like the Flyers versus Canadiens, because you have Carter Hart versus Price. Two of the like Carter Hart's like a rookie goalkeeper who's just absolutely insane, and you have Price for the Canadiens, who's like that has been voted 3 years in a row the hardest goalie to play against. So you have two of the like better goalies in the league going against each other. Like that's going to be a like 1-0 game type series, or like a 2-1 type series. You're not going to see like a 6-0 game at all in that series, and it's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a tough. It's a tough matchup. I think the Flyers have just way too much team talent to be denied.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Carter Hart's just playing at an absolute insane level right now. He's making saves that I'm just like, how do you do that? Like
right?
That kind of thing. So. Like I was a goalie, and I still like I'm like some of the saves he's like picking the pucks out of the air, and I'm like I didn't even see the puck and where it went. How did you see it? Like it's just,
right.
I find a goalie in hockey to be like the hardest job ever. So the fact that he's as good as he is just, and he's only 21, so it's just like wow. But that's definitely good. So hockey is going to be really good to watch. And I'm excited to see playoff hockey because that's the best kind of hockey.
Go big or go home. That's it. I mean, for a lot of these sports, as you drag on through the season and whatnot, you don't pay too much attention to it. But once you're getting to like that last month of the season, going into the playoffs, and then it's like you need to watch this. If you're not a fan of basketball or hockey, try watching it in the playoffs. It's a whole different animal altogether.
Yeah, it's the best time to be a fan is during playoffs. So I'm excited. I'm excited to watch playoff basketball, hockey, and eventually playoff baseball, and then go right into the NFL. It's We're gonna have all. It might be the first time ever that we have all 4 sports playing at the same time.
I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, I
watching games and doing updates for the show.
I said that out loud and was thinking at the same time, and I went, "Oh God, I'm glad my semester's over in a couple weeks." I don't know if I can handle that.
Right.
But anyways, we're gonna move on. We got big things coming out of college football for our random topics. So I guess the biggest news is the FCS. No, so not the FBS. The FCS has canceled all of their fall sports and opted to wait till spring to play them. Or wait, they're at the playoffs, excuse me, because they can't cancel the sports for the individual schools. Only the schools can do that, but they canceled all the FCS playoffs, which is, I don't want to say it's unexpected, but that's a big, huge thing, because what does the FBS do now? Do you think the FBS turns around and follows suit and cancels their playoffs? Because if they do, that's going to be even bigger story.
Right. Well, the FBS is where all the money is.
Correct.
But the FCS, it in collegiate sports for football, if you're to say the FBS is, let's put it in baseball terms, the FBS is major league, then the FCS is like AAA. They're right behind them. They don't have the big contracts. They're not the premier schools, but they're just below them. So for a lot of those schools, still there's a very loyal following for that football, for their football programs, and their football teams do play FBS schools during the season. So if the SCS is not just shut it down. I hate to say it, but the FBS that they're trying to deal with how to make it work, and you and I have reported on this. There's all sorts of hodgepodge stuff going on, but at the end of the day, I'm telling you now that they're saying we need to figure out a safe way to do this. The show needs to go on. We need to figure out a way to do it for safety. But please do not, for 1 minute, any of these organizations, do not tell us it's not about the money. The amount of money that college football draws is amazing, and they're all aware of it. And I think if you were to take money off the table altogether, it's not taking place at all. If you were to take money out of the equation, they're not playing college football this year.
Absolutely. And an even bigger story about going off of that is there's at least one player from every Power 5 conference that has opted out this season. Most of them opting out that are seniors or juniors that are top draft picks that are opting out because they want to quote unquote focus on the draft. Kind of the way, who was it last year that did this? Was it Bosa that did it, that sat out the entire season? Or was it Chase Young?
I don't recall. I do not recall.
I just remember that. Yeah, I remember there was a player that decided not to play, that opted out of the playing college. I'm pretty sure it was Bosa. It wasn't Joey. It was Nick, who opted out of the season so that he could focus on the draft. He still went 2 overall and is still a beast. And now that like the COVID thing is, there's a lot of players. There's like, I was looking at the list. There's at least like 50 players that are opting out to go focus on the draft. And some of them are top draft picks, some of them are not. And do you think this is going to become an increasingly bigger trend? Because the way the rules work is you only have to be out of high school for 3 years. It doesn't mean you have to be playing football for 3 years. It just means you have to be out of high school for 3 years before you can enter in the draft. Do you think that more and more players are going to start opting out of the draft, or opting out of college football to go into the draft?
Duh. That's my answer. Duh. I mean, if you look in college football, it's far worse than basketball, number one. But in college football, because of the rules, a lot of these guys will play their junior year and hang it up. There's always a big question for your elite players, especially in your power conferences, is their junior year or senior year going to be the last one? And because of the physicality of football, there's question marks. If you think you're going to be a top round draft pick after your junior year, why do you risk one more year of college ball knowing that there's a potential for injury that could either A, crush your draft stock in the next season, or B, cause an injury that you're not able to play? So there's your first problem. There are players that go from their junior to their senior season because they're like, hey, because of my position and the way the draft class is this year, I'm better off waiting till next year because my draft stock will be higher. So I can see players opting out to focus on the draft. How much of a change there is going to be to it over the way it's already been, I don't know, because they need to get at least 3 years in. But I think you might see more juniors opting out.
Yeah, I mean, the other reason why someone would opt out is because they're at such a high stock now that if they play this year and they have a bad year, it could drop them. So
Correct.
They're getting a lot of advice like don't play this year because you already have a high value.
You're basically it's being placed on what is your worth at the end of that junior year, and compared to the rest of the class. That's the picture that they're looking at.
I don't know. I think that for me, it's all about winning a championship. So and competing, and I just think you can't get this. You can't get the same by not playing that you could by playing. So practicing, being on the field, getting those game reps is not the same, or is getting all that experience is not the same as practicing off the field. You definitely need to do that.
So you're saying you should be able to hone those skills, that you should be out there making yourself even more of a better player than you already are.
What I'm saying is you should be playing in the games because that's going to make you a better player than going through reps in practice and training, getting in the weight room. And yeah, some of that stuff can translate, but the only way you're actually going to make any changes or become better is to actually do it, not sitting there in the weight room. Actually playing football is going to make you a better football player.
Mm.
So, and then my next question for you, because again, you're more the college football guy than I am. Clemson is ranked number 1 in the poll. Big shocker there.
Yep.
Do you think that they will stay there the entire season, or do you think they will lose a game? Again, mind you, we're going off the premise that we are playing and that they're going to do conference-only schedules, so they're only going to be playing teams in the ACC.
I think they're going to falter. There's been a curse in college football lately. The number 1 team, usually, if you're number 1 early in the season, it's almost like a curse. And especially with everything going on. The other reason when I say everything going on is with COVID and everything going, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 cases on that team to either gut the team of its starting players, or what if something happens like in baseball where you've got to not play 1 or 2 games. So I think for anybody to be ranked number 1, I cannot see how you will keep that the end of the with everything going on. I think if you start the season, the preseason poll at 1, and you finish the season at 1, and you don't come off of that ranking, that's a miracle. I just do not see how they keep it. I don't.
I don't see who can beat them. I look at their conference and I don't see a perennial powerhouse team that can beat them.
Right.
So, barring any COVID related stuff or shutdowns, I personally think that Clemson is going to be number 1 at the end of the season, but that's just me. So
cool. Well, we'll go back towards the end of the season and we'll see how we're doing.
Yeah. So we got a couple more things. The MLS back tournament is reaching its final. That's going to be Tuesday at 8:30. Unfortunately, the Union lost to the Portland Timbers because the Union just played an awful game and should have lost that. Not really happy about it, but it is what it is. So big news with that is literally right after the season, or the tournament happens, like the next day, they're starting their season again. The MLS is starting their season, so they're going to start playing soccer the day after the tournament. I think that it's the FC Dallas has their game that the next day on that Wednesday, which is insane that they're just like, all right, now we're like, they came out today and they're like, all right, now we're going to start it. No bubble. You guys are going to travel and they're going to do what the MLB is doing. So interested to see how that works out, but stay tuned for that. And then a UFC player last night made some incredible history. So Derek Lewis won by TKO in the main event last night. And he has now surpassed everybody for the most TKOs of any UFC fighter. I'm trying to see if I can find out how many he has. I think it was like 15 or 17, something like that. No, I'm way off. His 11th TKO, breaking his tie with some of the other big names. But so that's insane. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Yeah, I'm kind of like, if I ever need to get in a fight, I want to make friends with this guy because yeah, he's a good guy to call in if you need it. And I watched some of the fight, and he just destroyed the other dude. It wasn't even close. Like, he just beat the living hell out of him. Which is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, UFC is still one of those sports where I'm just like, I'm not a fighter, so for me, like, if I get into a fight, it's pretty rare, and I see these guys fighting and just destroying each other, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want to meet them. Like I watch like Brock Lesnar, and I'm just like, I look at him and I go, yeah, if I ever met him in real life and he was angry at me, I would probably just say whatever you say and like, just don't hit me kind of thing, because I'd be scared.
Just crawl drop to the floor, get in the fetal position and go, I am so sorry.
Yeah, like I would apologize so much. I'd be like, let me buy you a beer. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'd be scared out of my mind because the dude's probably like 4 times the size I am, and probably with one little punch or one little move could probably knock like my lights out and put me in a coma. So I'm not gonna like get involved with that. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. I don't know like what else to say about it. So
yeah, there's not much you can say. Well, let me go ahead and point out then, here's something we can say. You know what time of the show it is. You know what's coming.
It's time for Chip's Chumps. Bad plays, bad players, awful calls, poor sportsmanship. The worst of the week with Chip's Chumps.
All right, guys, I have a great time doing this week. There was a lot of things that happened within the last couple of days, which makes it even better because it's fresh. So we're gonna go right into it with the first one on the list, number 5. So number 5 goes to the Boston Bruins, and the reason I put them on there is because you were the best team in the league for like the entire regular season. We had to go on the hiatus. You come back and you guys don't put up a fight at all. You lose every game. You had the most points in NHL by a big margin. We're going to go in as number 1 seed. We're just dominating people. And you come in lackluster. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, come in, dominate, show off your skills. I mean, I'm not really that upset because I don't like Boston, but at the same time, like, as a non-partial fan, just bad, garbage. That's what you guys are. Garbage. Moron. Number 4. So my number 4 goes to Mr. Damien Lillard. Even though he did drop 51 points on us tonight, 51 on the Sixers. It's not why I put him on my list. I put him on my list because you had the chance to win the game and you missed free throws. 2 of them. They don't call them free throws because they're hard. They call them free throws because they're easy. And you're good at them, and you could have won the game with them, and you just missed them. Like, what did something get in your eye? Did you hurt your shoulder when you were trying to shoot it? Like, no, nothing. You just missed 2 free throws to win the game, Mr. Clutch. It obviously wasn't Dame time for that one. So, yeah, moron. Number 3. So number 3 goes to an interesting story that happened earlier today. So I'm going to try to give a little bit backstory for it. So it was the Houston Astros versus the Oakland Athletics. Somehow I feel like the Astros are always in this somehow, shape, or form, but I'm okay with it. The Astros guy threw at Ramon Laureano, and it was the 3rd time he got thrown at in 3 games, and he obviously didn't like getting thrown at. I don't think anybody really does. So he started chirping back at the pitcher. Walking the first, they said some words, and he went down the first, and I guess one of the coaches from the dugout was on the first baseline and was just chirping at Laureano and egging him on, and kind of waving to him like "let's fight" kind of deal, which is even more incredulous. And then all you see is Raymond sprint directly for the dugout after him. And then the coaches got involved, and then one of the coaches takes him down in a headlock, and the bench is clear, and it's a big, huge brawl, and there's punches thrown. And what the hell was going on? That's the only thing I can say about it. Like, what is going through your mind? Like, first of all, someone should have grabbed the coach and taken him away. Like, why in the world are you egging on a player because your guy threw the ball at him? Like, what goes through your mind to say anything to the guy because your pitcher was the instigator and threw the ball at him? Like, and then you don't even get in the fight because another coach stepped in front of you and took down the guy before you could be, and you didn't even make any effort to go after. Like, oh my God, it's just stupid. Like, this is not what baseball needs at all. This is not baseball. This is just, it's childish and dumb. Moron. Number 2. So number 2 goes to probably somebody that's going to get fired this week. I'm not going to lie. So at the end of the Denver and Utah game, I watched this live. The timekeeper for them had not 1, but 2 mishaps. So the first came at the end of regulation. There was 3.4 seconds left, and Denver was down 2, and they were passing the ball. So they passed in the ball. Jokic drives, makes a layup. There was one problem. They never started the clock. How in the world do you not start the clock? Did you just start staring at the game and forget to flip the switch? Because it's all it is when you start the clock. It's a switch. You just push the switch and the timer goes. Never saw that before in a game, especially in an NBA game. I've seen it in high school and stuff like that. So they had to go to a review with the ref with a stopwatch to figure out whether he had made enough. He had made the basket within enough time, delaying the game even longer. Then, not only did you screw up, then you screwed up again when there was 0.3 seconds left, and they passed the ball in. Nobody touches it, and you flip the switch. What the hell is going on? Like, do you not know how to do your job at all? Moron. Number 1. So this one, in all seriousness, is probably one of the worst defenses of Chip's Chumps, and I think eventually I'm going to do an all-time worst offense, and this is probably going to be up there. This one goes to Mr. Deriuce Guise, who was arrested for domestic violence and actually admitted to doing it, saying that he did choke her out, which I think that's why anyways. But he was released from the Washington football team, and rightfully so. And he's charged with, I think it was like 3 counts of domestic violence over the last 6 months. There's no defending that. There's no giving any excuses for that. Like, I hope they throw the book at him. I hope he never plays football again. You shouldn't. That stuff's unacceptable. There's no reason why anybody should perform those type of acts on another human being, and assault anybody of like a man should never put his hands on a woman. That is, I find, highly offensive and highly like the worst kind of person to do that. So I say this with the utmost I don't know what how to phrase it properly, but Deriuce Guise, moron.
There we go. Chumps for the week, and your number one. He is another example of somebody that moron does not accurately describe it, but in trying to keep our show somewhat safe, use the other terms.
It's hard to use synonyms for words that you really want to call him.
Oh, there's a whole bunch that we could call him, but we'll stick to moron.
Yeah, moron's probably the safest that we can say.
Yes. And I know you and I were watching that Denver-Utah game with the Timekeeper, and we were just like, okay, this is ridiculous. You've got.
Oh, I said it then. Whoever's the Timekeeper is getting fired. Like, how do you not get fired after that?
But with that, that reminds me of a quote from. Did you see Ocean's 11, the remake with George Clooney and the whole group?
Yeah.
And it's the beginning of the movie with Basher, and he's like, "Oh man, you tossed it. You have one job to do. That's it. That's all the Timekeeper does.
He flips a switch. That's all you got to do. As soon as they touch the ball, you flip the switch.
You've got one job to do." And finally, when I talked to you about that brawl, man, that was. Even you seemed kind of flabbergasted about that one for a minute. Like, what am I watching here? Because it wasn't normally it's the players, but when the coach starts goading the player and getting involved in that, I was like, okay, this doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm sitting there, and at first I had to actually watch it like 2 or 3 times because I was dumbfounded by the fact that the coach was like waving the guy to come at him. Like, first of all, what possesses you as a coach to say that to another player? Like sometimes I know players get heated and they can have a quote unquote brawl, but I don't think I've ever seen it where the coach is instigating it and it's a coach versus a player. Like, I've never seen it like that where it's a coach on an opposite team and a player on an opposite team that are going at it. Like, it just that in itself was just crazy. And then the fact that he was egging him on, and then as soon as he was egging him on, another coach stepped in front of him and took the guy down, and he was just trying to get to him, but like you could tell he wasn't making much of an effort to go over another coach to get to the player.
Oh no, he knew what he did. He was like, oh, I did my part. I'm like, because if he actually got involved in that, he was going to get his clock cleaned.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what it seems like.
Oh, he went full sprint, like he was gonna spear the dude into oblivion. Like he was
oh my god, yes.
He wasn't slowly walking to him. Like he literally stopped and sprinted at him.
No, if the coaches didn't get in between that, I'm sorry. That coach that was goading him onto he was going to get wrecked. There was no way to look at it otherwise, man. It would have been like a one-sided UFC fight. It was not going to be pretty.
And I would like to mention that he was not wearing his mask when he was shouting at him. So there's that too.
So baseball needs to penalize him for that, right? I mean, rules are rules.
Rules are rules. Yeah. Yes. That might have been his biggest offense.
Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's hit the buzzer.
It's the final buzzer. The last moments of the show.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, you heard it. We are at the final buzzer. A rather interesting show, I must say. Plenty of interesting news this week. Some great playoff sport to look forward to coming up in the week. And before we get to the closing, as always, Chip, what do we got for movie of the week, man?
So we got one of my favorites. As you guys know, I'm a big college basketball fan. So this is Blue Chips. It's kind of an older film, but it's 1994 with Nick Nolte. It's got Shaquille O'Neal in it, Penny Hardaway. And the basic premise of it is surrounded around paying for players. And Nick Nolte is a basketball coach who is against it, but has to delve into the world of boosters and all that stuff to win championships to save his job. And he borderline gets into he kind of doesn't know about it, but he knows about that something else is going on. And he's got a lot of politics going on, and it's a really good film. So one of the major good quotes that I pulled from the movie is this: "I've become what I despise. I cheated my profession, cheated myself. I cheated basketball. There's two words I didn't think I'd ever come out of my mouth. I didn't think I'd ever be able to say, I quit."
I don't have much to follow up with that one.
Yeah, it's a quote towards the end of the movie, and it's him in a press conference. And they just won the national championship. And he finds out about it, and he finds out that basically his team was bought. And he feels disgusted with himself.
Yeah.
Essentially.
There you go. Blue Chips. If you get a chance this week, get out. And with that being said, well, we want to give a shout out again to Des Creates and Hydrox22. Hydrox22 can be found on Twitch TV and Des Creates at descreates.com. As always, thank you, everybody. We appreciate the feedback we're getting on our Discord server. There, we've seemed to have stimulated a lot of conversations there, to say the least. A lot of interesting conversation. We've been throwing out a little bit of history fact here and there. Overall, we're having a great time, and we're glad you're all along for the ride. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the books on this one. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we are out.
You've been listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Your opinion may differ, but that doesn't mean you're right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We hope you were intrigued or at least entertained. You can find the podcast on all the major networks. Find us on Discord and Patreon at Random Chatter. Hook up on the website at randomchatter.com and browse through the merchandise at randomchatter.com/store. We'll see you next time. This is Sportscasters Anonymous. Signing off.